Zoe Webber, thanks very much for your time. You've had 2 hours or so, most of which you spent on the stage. How was that for you here at the Fans Forum?
Yeah, it was really good. First time we've done an event here. Amazing, kind of pulled together in the last week or so. But yeah, it's been great to see so many supporters here tonight, and get the chance to meet them.
And if we can, we'll just touch on one or two of the questions that were put to you. Start with, I mean, there was a lot of questions. Understandably, you probably were expecting about Mark Attanasio and his involvement. Where are we at in terms of the allotment of shares, which we all know earlier in the year that was a process that was rolled out, and you gave an update tonight. Can you just let us know where we are with that?
Yeah, I think the update this evening is very much we're still working on it. I explained that because we're a PLC, we have a lot of legal and regulatory frameworks that we have to kind of work through, and quite a lot of that we can't discuss and speak about until it's time to kind of present various different things. So it's something that's ongoing. Hopefully, we'll get some update in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be able to kind of give a bit more in terms of progress.
Yeah. So in terms of a process, it obviously sounds very complex, but it's moving along. There's no sense that it's going into an area that's going to prevent the general process of that evolving, as you say.
No, yeah, we hope not. We're working through it all positively. I think everyone's a little bit frustrated with how long it's taking, but like I say, some of that's not in our hands.
Yeah, understood. You were asked a question about parachute payments and the last set of accounts. It mapped out future-proofing the club in terms of loans and borrowing mechanisms. Where are you with that as a club? What is the feeling within the board in terms of the financial health of the club at the minute?
Yeah, I think the way we work is that we will always try and kind of live within our means, but at the same time, we want to be competitive. So we're always trying to kind of balance off, the budgets, the financial position, to make sure that we can maintain that sort of financial stability, but also, push where we, and push on. So, yeah, it's a fine line, but like I spoke about tonight, it's not a position that we're willing to kind of, compromise the future security of the club over.
And on that specific point, I mean, does that flow into, a lot of questions were put, understandably, to David about what's happening in terms of the squad and incoming players, but as a window, bearing in mind the financial sort of parameters you're dealing with, does it need a net surplus in terms of transfer funds this window in terms of the balance sheet?
Not necessarily. In terms of the balance sheet, I think we always know that we have to kind of there might be situations if we want to make investment into the squad or strengthen the squad. We need to sell and we need to sort of maintain that position. But it's something that Stuart and our finance director kind of meet, constantly over modelling about what it looks like, what Stuart wants to do, what he'd have to do if he wants to achieve that. It's very live.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Stuart, and inevitably, I guess if you would have thought, what question am I going to get asked tonight? It was about the news that the club confirmed that Stuart's, notice period now, if you like, is 3 months in. Where are we with that? I know you provided an update in the Fans Forum, but where are you in terms of that process and Stuart's replacement?
So like I say, we've sort of been working behind the scenes for the last 3 months, just in terms of pulling together kind of, our knowledge, sort of potential replacements from within the industry. We've also spoken to recently, once it's been announced, we've spoken to different recruitment agents that specialise in this field, and we hope to appoint somebody this week. And then, once they're appointed, it will be a very active search. And it's a difficult role because it's quite unique because of the way the club's operated. So, and we've built a very defined culture over the last sort of 6 years or so. So we've got to make sure that we get the right person.
And is there any time scale? We know obviously with Stuart's that it potentially it could run until March, but would it be fair to say you'd like a resolution before that period?
Yeah, I think we want to go to market now because we could be in a situation where we want to appoint somebody and they've got 6 or 12 months notice. So we don't want to kind of lose time in that respect and kind of just sort of think, oh, well, we'll deal with it nearer the time. So it's important for us to move now. I think, there could be a scenario where we appoint somebody who isn't in work and actually they might say, well, look, I want to come, but I'm not going to sort of sit here unemployed for the next 6 months until Stuart leaves. I want to join. So I think we're quite open to seeing where it lands and then working through what the kind of the transition is as far as Stuart's concerned.
And with that transition, is there any, because, inevitably people will say, is there a lack of clarity in terms of what you're trying to do in the here and now, the squad building that David spoke about? Because there is that, is Stuart going to be here for X amount of time? Does that have any impact, do you feel, in terms of the clarity of the business?
No, I mean, I think that when sort of Stuart told his key staff that he'd handed in his notice back in March, everyone was surprised. They hadn't seen a difference in him from March to June, and very much, focused on doing his job. And he is very much focused on doing his job, and, and as committed to Delia and Michael and to Mark that he will if he's here till the 31st of March he will continue to do his job.
And in terms of commitment and in terms of job, you were asked directly, what does it mean for you? We obviously know your husband, but you were very clear that as far as you're concerned, you feel you've still got a job to do, and whatever happens with Stuart from here on in doesn't really impact in terms of you and Norwich City.
Yeah, definitely not in the immediacy. I love being a part of the football club. Like I say, I think there's a lot to do. We've spoken a lot about some of the stadium development plans we'd like to see come to fruition. There's there's a lot we want to achieve. So yeah, for me, like I said tonight, it's we're not kind of joined at the hip professionally. We've been fortunate enough to work together at two different clubs, but equally we've worked at other clubs with other people. So I'm staying.
And on that point, just to sort of draw things to a close, that was very interesting what you said about. I think the question was about safe standing, but you broadened it out in terms of where the club are now and what they're looking at. If you could just give us an update on that.
Yeah, I think we spoke this evening about wider master planning of the stadium, and the more we kind of speak about one particular area, the more it kind of unlocks conversations on other areas of the stadium. So what we're doing is looking at the stadium as a whole, what the art of the possible could be, and what the different phasing stages might be. And one of the things we touched on, which is really key for us, is how do we redevelop a stadium and try not to lose any seats, because the number of sort of season ticket holders we don't want a situation where we're almost having to kind of draw a raffle as to who gets a seat and who doesn't. So whatever project we decide to bring in, and very much in the longer term, would need to be phased correctly.
Thank you, Zoe. Thanks for your time. Cheers.
No problem.